Welcome back. And if you don't know me, I'm Jennifer7, and this is the Menopause Map FemPower. Last time I was live, last week, I introduced the map, the Menopause Map. Today, I want to go deeper. I want to go deeper on something that is underneath all of it, something that most women feel, but they really don't have a language for it yet. So let's get into it. Tonight, I want to talk about a sentence that I hear all the time from midlife women, and maybe it's a sentence that you've said to yourself. I just don't feel like myself. Not just tired, but my body's changed, and that deeper feeling of becoming unfamiliar to ourselves, of reaching for that old version of who we were and just feeling like we're coming up short. I don't think this is vanity. I don't think this is weakness. And thank you guys who are showing up to watch my live. I don't think this is women being dramatic. What I really think this is grief. And I think it is one of the least talked about parts of midlife. So I want to tell you my own personal story. I'd like to share this with you. So I had a contract with FEMA, and I was in my 40s. I was working for FEMA, and we were organizing health fairs. So we were setting up resources for other people's health. But ironically, my own health, my own body was in crisis. I wasn't aware of what was happening. So this event was actually in Philadelphia. We were setting up a big, huge outdoor event, and it was on the big grounds outside of where the Liberty Bell is. There's a huge open green area. We were bringing in all kinds of vendors, and I was the event coordinator for this event. It was very stressful. It was a ton of work. It was exciting because we were bringing in all these assets so that the general public could learn about the resources that FEMA had, and health resources and disaster recovery resources. So it was a very big day. And outside all day, think about not a lot of access to bathrooms, working really hard, taxing my body. And I'm going to get really personal here, and I hope you guys are okay with it, but my periods had been becoming very heavy, and on that particular day, I think my period had started, and it was really heavy. Like unpredictable, like, this sounds so personal, but kind of a flooding and cramping, and just I wasn't feeling great, but I was under a great deal of stress, and I wasn't quite sure what was going on. But yeah, so I had my supplies as much as I could, like the tampons and the napkins, and it just felt like I couldn't keep up. And finally, toward the end of the day, we were going to go back to the FEMA office there in Philadelphia. So we walked back, and I was with mostly men. And we get back to the FEMA office. We're going to go in and check in the office before we head back to our hotels for the night. And we have to go through the security checkpoint. Well, at this point, I'm pretty confident that I am bleeding and like leaking and bleeding through tampons and napkins, and I just want to get to a bathroom, but I have to go through the security screening where you have to be wanded, and I'm just like, I don't even want to know what this potential security guard is seeing. So we get through, and we have to go up the elevator, and finally I get into the bathroom, and as I had thought, it was the worst. Leaked down in my pants, was soaking. It was just really bad, and I was absolutely mortified. And I don't think at that time I had any more supplies, and I was feeling kind of helpless. It's late in the day. I'm in the bathroom. I kind of don't know what to do. I don't want to leave the bathroom because I'm so embarrassed. I'm so ashamed that I've got this leaking situation. I'm like grabbing paper towels, whatever I can get to kind of help myself out. So fortunately, this woman comes in that was on the team, and I was just like, hey, I kind of need some help. And I show her what has happened to my clothes. And she's like, oh my God, here I am in this federal building with just dealing with paper towels in the bathroom. And so she goes and gets me a extra large FEMA shirt that like almost fit like a dress. So it came down over the area that was all like stained. And then I felt like, okay, I can leave the bathroom. So it was embarrassing. It was stressful. I wasn't feeling great. I was feeling very depleted. But it was so stressful, and I just felt so ashamed and embarrassed. And what I didn't have language for in that bathroom was that what was happening to my body was, it was not a failure. I mean, why was I ashamed and embarrassed? It was perimenopause, and I had no idea, that this was what was going to be happening. Nobody had told me that this is what was going to happen with my periods. And yeah, definitely the stress of the event and the hard work on the outside probably contributed to all of that. So that feeling of just standing there alone, covered in this blood, thinking something is wrong with me, when the truth was something was changing in me, and I had just never been given the map for any of it. I was a woman in her 40s, and I think how ironic that I was working in health and wellness, and yet I didn't have the information that I needed for my own body. And I want to just say that this is not a personal failing, it's a systemic gap. And this is the gap that I'm here to close. The Menopause Map wasn't built from a textbook. I mean, it was built from this bathroom floor in Philadelphia. So let's talk about this map. The old map that we barely had said to women, just push harder, eat less, sleep last, override your body, call exhaustion normal. And for decades, what did we do as women? We made it work. We pushed, we produced, we held the room, and we got praised for it. And that's the part that makes it so hard to let go of it. We were actually being rewarded for this self-abandonment. But midlife is often when the body just stops cooperating with this life that was never built around our capacity. And I want to say this to women. I want to say your body did not betray you. It just stopped cooperating with a life that wasn't built around the capacity, our capacity. And we need to learn to listen to our bodies. So the other phrase that I really don't like is thinking that you're lazy because you're not doing as much as you were doing before. So what I want to say is that when we start saying something looks like laziness, it's probably just depletion. What looks like weakness is a nervous system that's just been on overdrive for 20 years. Let's talk a little bit more about this. And I think a lot of women can probably relate. There's the waking up at 3 a.m. And I've experienced this as well. I have had so much trouble with sleep over the years and not ever knowing this was a perimenopause effect. So waking up at 3 a.m., my mind is going. It's just like zip, zip, zip. I'm having a board meeting in my head. I'm doing a life review in my head. I'm reviewing everything, anytime, anywhere. Just, it's like I'm wide awake in my head and I cannot get back to sleep, although I am exhausted. And this makes me feel angry with myself. I'm reviewing everything. I'm like, I need to get back to sleep. I only have this many hours to get back to sleep. What if I don't get back to sleep? Then I'm going to be ruined for the day ahead because I'm going to be exhausted. Why can't I go to sleep? I have 3 hours more of sleep. What is wrong? And it's kind of this anger and frustration, and then angry at my body because it won't cooperate. And then there's an anxiety. Uh, and it's like something you just can't quite name. You just are feeling this anxiousness. Or perhaps it's not the nights. Perhaps it's your mood. Perhaps you used to be a very patient person. I mean, genuinely patient and kind. And then suddenly there's this rage that comes out of nowhere, and it actually scares you a little bit. Like you just blow up and go off the charts. And your family's like, whoa, who are you? And you're like, I don't know who I am. Or maybe it's about looking in the mirror and you see yourself and you're like, well, I know logically that this is me, but I don't really recognize myself. I mean, all of a sudden it's like I'm getting lines and wrinkles and my face is sagging, and that's not me. I'm my 25-year-old self or my 30-year-old self or my 35-year-old self. I'm not this person. And then there's a grief. There's a grief underneath, but you don't have a name for it. You don't even realize that. And so I want to ask you, does any of this resonate? Does it make sense to you? Does it land with you? Let's talk a little bit about some of these things that are going on. So first is your energy, and suddenly you're tired in a way that rest just isn't fixing. You're just tired. You don't have the energy that you had. Your capacity is not what it was. Suddenly you have mood changes, rage, anxiety, or perhaps it's a flatness that just feels super unfamiliar. Sleep. We talked a little bit about this a minute ago. Suddenly you're waking up at 3 and 4 a.m. Why? And you're not rested. And then you're exhausted for the day coming forward. How about confidence? I think we start to lose our confidence because of all these things that are happening. We're second guessing things that we never used to guess. Maybe we're having some brain fog. Maybe we're having trouble accessing words. It's not dementia. It's actually perimenopause that's going on. So we begin to lose our confidence, or we're having hot flashes at the worst times. In a staff meeting, you're suddenly red from head to toe and sweating like crazy. What's that all about? And what about your joy? Maybe now you're just going through the motions and you're wondering, where did the aliveness go? Where is it? I'm feeling flat. I'm not feeling joy. I might be even kind of depressed. All part of perimenopause that we were never told about. I like to think that a woman's body is not a math problem. It's a whole life finally telling the truth. So I want to talk about, in my menopause map, I've come up with 5 floors. So I'm going to talk about those. I don't think women need another shame-based plan. There's just too much shame. And I have worked in weight loss and wellness for years. And I have women coming into me. I have sat with thousands of women, and they are so ashamed when they come in with weight issues and they feel like they have failed time and time again. So I am not about shame-based plans. I think we need a much better way to listen. So I think in floors, not fixes. A fix, that says something's wrong with you and we can fix it. A floor says that we have something we need to stabilize. We have something that needs support. And I think that's the difference right there. So let's talk about floors so I can share with you how I've identified floors. So I've really identified 5 floors. And this is really foundational. And if we can start working on these floors that are potentially leaking, if we can shore up the leaks, then we can start to feel better. So the first floor is your sleep floor. To me, this is the most important floor foundationally, because if we don't have sleep, then it's really, really difficult to work on any of the other floors. So if we're having poor sleep, then we're getting that brain fog. We might be having more hunger because our cortisol levels are higher. Our moods are off because we're exhausted. And there's cravings that come from lack of sleep, and a lot of women don't realize that. And then we're blaming ourselves for our cravings. So that's floor one, which I always say we've got to get sleep right first, and then we can move on to the other floors. So if your sleep is good, then there's no leaking there. Let's look at the next floor. The next floor is your protein and blood sugar. So this is not about eating less. And we were told, for years, eat less, exercise more. That's the formula if you want to lose weight. And it's wrong. I wanted to say that flat out. That is wrong. It is not about eating less. It is about eating the right things. And exercise is not the answer for weight loss. So that's a whole other conversation. But it's not about eating less. And it's about stabilizing our body with our protein and our blood sugar so that we're not running on caffeine and we're not running on crashes. Midlife changes how we process blood sugar. So if you eat carefully all day and you're still feeling out of control at night, that's not a willpower problem. It's a blood sugar problem, and it's fixable. So I work with people to help them understand how we can fix that blood sugar problem, and we have to be protein forward. And it's all the buzz right now about protein, but there is a lot of good sense in being protein forward. So that's your second floor. It also helps stabilize your blood sugar so that you don't have these big crashes throughout the day. You know how you get at 3 o'clock, you're just like, crash. Oh gosh, I better go eat something with sugar so I can pick myself up. It's because we're not fueling our body properly earlier in the day. So the crashes aren't great. Or that can lead to that craving at night because the body's like, I'm still looking for something. But if we can properly fuel with good protein throughout the day, we can avoid that. The third floor is your strength floor. So muscle is your metabolic engine. I always tell my clients, muscle is the engine that burns fat. So the more muscle we have, the easier it is to burn fat. Men lose weight easier and faster because they have a much bigger muscle mass than women do. So it's not about looking toned. This is about blood sugar control, bone density, energy, and feeling at home in your body. So there's a lot to be said here. When we hit perimenopause, we are scientifically going to lose muscle. It just starts to happen. So following muscle loss, we're going to experience bone loss. And this is where we want to look at our longevity. We want to have strong muscles so that we can have strong bones, so that as we live longer, we're not in a nursing home with a broken hip. So it's great that women live longer than men, but not if they're existing in a nursing home. So strength, super important. If your workouts are leaving you more depleted than energized, then that's information that you need to know. Your body may need to build, not just burn. And in my map, I like to meet women where they are. So we start small. It's not about suddenly being a gym rat and doing these crazy intensive personal trainer workouts. We have to start small and slow and do what we can, and that's okay. So small workouts a couple times a week, squats, wall push-ups, things like that, we can build those in, and so that we can get stronger. And super important, because we also want to be able to get up and down off the floor, play with our grandchildren, things like that. So that's our third floor, our strength floor. Our fourth floor is our nervous system. This is our stress. Many midlife women, they're not lazy, they're just freaking overloaded. And a nervous system that's been on high alert for 20 years through careers, kids, caregiving, grief, needs real recovery. Women are expected to do everything. We are mothers, we are daughters, we are sisters. we are aunts, we are caregivers, we are spouses, we are caregiving in so many ways. But who's last on that? Probably ourselves. We don't give ourselves permission to take care of ourselves. And this can really dysregulate our nervous system, and we cannot shame it. We can't shame our dysregulated nervous system into calm. So this is a very important floor that if we're leaking here, we want to work on stabilizing and supporting that floor. And then there's the fifth floor, which is our joy floor. And I think this is super important because, again, if we're going to live a longer life and live this longevity, we want to have joy in our lives. Joy is data. If nothing is feeling good, that's not a personality trait. It's a signal. You cannot put joy last for 30 years and then be surprised that it's just gone. It's gone quiet. Joy is not a luxury, ladies. It's a biological signal. It is a nervous system regulator, and it is what makes the other 4 floors sustainable. And there's a lot of things that we can do to just give ourselves a little bit of joy in our lives. These 5 floors are not a checklist. They are simply a diagnostic. I always want women to look at the floors, but identify the floor that's leaking the most. And that's the floor we start with. You can't fix all 5 floors at once. You have to start with just one. And it's the one that needs the support first. And I want to talk about grief. Oh gosh. If you really sit with this a little bit, there's the grief of the body. The grief of the body that you knew, that you understood, the body that was predictable. There's the grief of the energy that we had, mentally, emotionally, the capacity we had to hold everyone else and still have something left. There's the grief of realizing how long you've been managing instead of living. That anger is information too. Why didn't anyone tell us? So that gap is where this map, the Menopause Map, is here to fill. What if midlife is not the body becoming difficult? What if midlife is the body becoming honest and we start to listen? You don't need to become the old you again. Probably can't become the old you again. You need to build trust with the woman that you are right now, that the woman you are becoming. And know that grief is not weakness. Grief is recognition, and it means that something mattered. So one question that I want you to take with you: which floor do you think is cracked for you right now? Which of these 5 floors is leaking? And remember, you don't have to fix everything. You just want to start with one thing. I have a free menopause assessment, which you can find on my website in Substack, that will help you identify exactly which floor needs support first. It'll show you which ones you're doing great on, and it'll show you the ones that, I need to work on this. So I'll put the link in the comments as well, but I encourage you, take the menopause assessment, figure out where you are, and then let's start rebuilding it. Let's plug the leaks. And I think you can find that you're just not losing yourself. It's just that the old map stopped working. And now we are going to start building a better one. So thank you guys for being here. I'm so glad you're here and following me on this Menopause Map journey. And I'll be back next week with our next topic. And I hope you'll follow me on Substack if you're not already. So again, thank you so much for being here, and have a great evening. And remember, you are not lazy. You just have not had the right